now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our March 30th, 2021 meeting. We'll begin with the approval of minutes, March 23rd, 2021.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second. First and a second. Any comments? Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Next will be Commissioner reports and comments. Vice President Baker.
Not a whole lot here today. I would just like to reiterate some of my comments from last week on keeping the Cascade and Hancock schools open. I think it's very important that our school board members really think about the impacts that they would make for those communities forever if those community schools were to ever be changed, and just the impacts on the parents, the kids, and all of that. And I just think it's going to be extremely important to keep both of those schools open. I know I'm going to be, I know I don't have a vote, but I know in my heart that I completely support keeping both of those schools open. Also, if you go up around Hancock, you'll see there at Martha's house, she's doing all that she can, Mrs. Cahill's doing all that she can to let the community know the importance of keeping those schools open. She has a mascot there. She's putting former athletes' jerseys in her windows, and just continually working towards keeping those schools open. And I just think that's going to be extremely important for both of those communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kiefer.
Yes, I have a couple comments here. One, I wanted to remark on the passing of Washington County's most senior citizen. Mrs. Ruby Staley passed away on Sunday at the age of 112. In June, she would have been celebrating her 113th birthday. And at her age, when she passed, she was the oldest Maryland resident. And from some searches I've done online, she may have been the 15th oldest resident in the United States at the time. So, Mrs. Ruby Staley, one of my most favorite things I've done as a county commissioner was to attend her birthday party when she turned 110. Became a super centenarian, and also when she turned 111, I was invited back. 112 was during COVID, and nobody was allowed to participate. I saw in the newspaper her family remarked her secret to a long life had to do with always finding the good in people and eating chocolate. So may that be a lesson to us all. Would also like to follow up on Commissioner Baker's comments about the Hancock and Cascade school closings. My heart breaks for those communities. And this is the second year of turmoil that those communities are having to face. Last year with COVID, and we're still coming out of COVID, and the uncertainty with their students and online and digital learning. And now they're worried about their children's future yet again for a second year. I do hope the school board decides sooner rather than later to make a decision. I know they are awaiting information on a school committee, the FIAT committee. If they know in their hearts what they want to do, don't let those communities suffer any longer than they have to. Schools are often in our communities the largest economic driver, and if those schools were to close, that affects our tax base. That affects our ability in Washington County to fund the school system. So I know our Board of Ed is focused on education. That's what they're elected to do. We're focused here as a county commissioner how much our community is woven in together and how one decision impacts the entire community. And if these schools close, I really think it's going to impact our tax base. It's going to impact our ability to bring in employers into our communities, and it will impact our revenue, and that impacts everyone. My third and final comment has to do with a question, I suppose, for John. Sarah or Kirk, whoever can answer it. The City of Hagerstown police dispatchers, I know that's an issue that goes unresolved. The dollar amount's about $400,000 a year. We're coming to a close on fiscal year 21, and the city has not paid the county, reimbursed us that dollar amount. We're coming up on fiscal year 22 rather quickly, and that amount will double. So could you provide any kind of update for us, Sarah?
Sure. You're correct. The city of Hagerstown pays us about $405,000 annually for those dispatchers. That invoice goes out to the city in May of every year for the year. So last May in 2020, that covered July 1 of 2019 through June 30 of 2020. That bill has not been paid. And then another invoice will go out for fiscal year 21 this upcoming May for the period of July 1, 2020 to June 30 of 2021. And it's $405,630 is the amount each year.
Okay.
To my fellow commissioners, I mean, this is an issue that's going to be compounding here within the next month or two. And I have a few ideas of how I think we should proceed, but I'd like to see if my counterparts have any comments.
I think, go ahead.
No, good one. Go, Randy.
You know, I agree with you 100%. I did the math a while back, and it's over $600,000 value for $400,000. We have 2 people dedicated full time. I would leave it up to agreement by the commissioners and what staff recommends to get that money, but I'm open to anything. I have to pay my debt. Everybody pays their debt. They're supposed to, so that's sort of the way I feel about it.
Okay. And there is some sort of contract that's been drawn up to present to them, Mr. Downey. Has that been presented to them?
There is a draft MOU that would memorialize in writing the agreement that was reached between the city and the county over 10 years ago when the 911 dispatch center was consolidated. I did present a copy to the city administrator.
Kirk, is that dollar amount still $400,000, or have we adjusted it? As Randy said, the value of the service we provide is greater than it was 10 years ago.
That is correct.
So is it still $400,000?
The amount is subject to negotiation. Obviously, the city has taken the position that this was never meant to be an agreement in perpetuity. Obviously, our position is that we disagree because this was an agreement that was made for the economic interest of both parties. It saved both parties money going forward in perpetuity, and our position has been that the city should honor its obligation, whether that's agreeing to pay the original amount that was agreed to back in 2010 or so when the consolidation occurred, or an updated amount that reflects the increased cost that has occurred over that decade, and for which the county bears the burden and the city gets the benefit.
All right, so I guess we're suggesting that contract should be presented to them again and resolved.
I would go so far as to say, this is me speaking, we need to set timelines with when we expect fiscal year 21's payment, when we expect fiscal year 2022's payment. I would assume sometime in July we would expect that. And if the city's not willing to continue on with that agreement, I mean, unless they can find somewhere an agreement that the commissioner signed back then when I was not a commissioner, that it was meant to be temporary. From my understanding, it was not meant to be temporary. From speaking with the staff who were transferred over at that time, the staff who were well involved in this discussion back then, it was a permanent basis because, as you say, it is a huge value to the city of Hagerstown. I think maybe we look at handing that back over to the city. Not cold turkey, give them a 6-month deadline, a 6-month transition period after our deadline's not met. If they want to take back over the city police dispatchers, I want to make sure our employees know that they will be transitioned somewhere else into the 911 operations center with their jobs, so we're not doing away or eliminating any of our staff members, but maybe we've come to the point where that needs to transition back to the city if they don't see the value.
All right, very good points, thank you. Commissioner Kiefer, any other comments?
That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner?
Good morning. I said it all last week, and I'm still in agreement with Commissioner Baker and Commissioner Kiefer on the school situation. You know, I could sum it up, and Commissioner Kiefer summed it up pretty well, that I'm not in the business to crush communities. And from my honor life as a real estate, I know that will crush a community when there's no schools. People are driven to communities by schools, and they're not going to move there. They're not going to do anything if there's not a school. I do agree that burden lies on the school board, and I also agree that I would hope they'd make a decision soon. So that's pretty much, I said it all last week, and I think Commissioner Baker and Kiefer summed it up pretty well. We just talked about the city of Hagerstown, so on a brighter note, I was able to attend a few that I would encourage everybody to get to one, the Vietnam War Veterans second annual commemoration. Our Vietnam veterans were there. It was a pretty good crowd for the middle of the day yesterday, and I thought that was a very nice function. Was able also to attend mass vaccination center out at the outlets. Well organized. Kudos to everybody that was involved in that. County, National Guard was heavy presence there, which was very impressive. And I hear it's going really well for their opening. And probably the best event I've attended in a while, and I like Commissioner Kiefer. Was that Mrs. Ruby? Is that Mrs. Ruby?
Ruby Staley.
Ruby Staley. I got to keep that chocolate in mind because I eat enough chocolate. I might beat her on a longevity, but I doubt it. We attended, or I helped organize, with the help of Krista and Danielle and PR, a birthday. A lady wanted to work at Fairchurch. She's 103 years old past weekend, and she wanted to come out and see some of the airplanes that she worked on, the PT-19 trainer, for example. Long story short, the museum was closed, so the family contacted me. I called the museum. I knew the guys pretty well. They opened the museum for her, and like I said, Danielle brought out, with the help of Krista organizing, a cake with an airplane on it, balloons, and they had WDVM, Herald Mail, and of course our PR department there. This lady actually got around better than I do, I think. She wandered around there looking at those airplanes for 45 minutes.
She probably eats a lot of chocolate too.
Yeah, she probably eats a lot of chocolate, but she was very happy. The family was happy. So that was a real fun experience to be able to do that for somebody. And they had a poster blowed up there, and she was looking at that thing for about a half hour, and she recognized her sister in it from back then. So anyway, I want to welcome, I guess hopefully in a couple weeks, I don't know, if Senate has to confirm our new commissioner. I think the governor, am I correct, already okayed that, Charlie Burkett? And so I want to welcome him. He'll probably be up here with us, if the Senate's okay with it, probably in about 2 weeks. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. In regards to Mrs. Staley, there's a family connection with her and my family. My brother and one of her relatives are best of friends. And Wayne, you were there on her 111th birthday with my brother in the background. I didn't know it till I saw the picture. So kudos and thanks to her for such a long life. For my report, I did attend the opening of the Mass Vaccination Center. Thank you, Governor, and all the staff who brought that facility to Washington County, to Western Maryland, to Hagerstown. I also attended the event with Mrs. Clever at the Aviation Museum, going through some of my photographs. I also was at her 100th birthday celebration at her house, family's house down on Jordan Road. And I also did attend the event at the Vietnam's War Veteran Monument. Events like that in today's world are always important, more than ever. So kudos to all those people that helped raise the funds and got that monument up. In regards to our schools, I do hope the school board sooner than later decides just to go ahead and open those schools. The economic impact in Destin, those two communities, to be desolate and ghost towns is dramatic when you close a school. And the economic impact on the rest of the county, why should the other communities care? That economic impact will also fall upon the other communities. So keeping Hancock and Cascade schools open is important. One of the ideas I was throwing around this morning to Commissioner Kiefer and John was perhaps we could develop some type of special incentive package for business relocation or expansion up there to further express or expedite economic development, which being people for jobs and moving in with homes. I know that might not be fair to the other communities, but with the dire situation of their schools being closed to create economic development and more jobs and people moving in, I think would be important. Not something I want anybody to agree on today, but just a thought how we would maybe prepare a special incentive package for businesses already there to expand or to recruit new with the industrial park and possibly a ramp being built up there in Hancock and the future development of Cascade underway. I think that might be a way to solve future school classroom sizes by bringing in economic development and people living where they work. In regards to the city of Hagerstown, they owe us a bill, we need to pay it. We're soon gonna be up on doubling the amount, so we should submit that contract to them and begin negotiations to close that out. And I think Commissioner Kiefer is right on. If they're going to be reluctant on accepting that obligation, we did have a commissioners meeting where we brought in people who were involved in those negotiations 10 years ago. It is the intent that that money was to be paid in perpetuity. Commissioner Wagner mentioned the value of that service now is well over $600,000. I think they should be called upon to pay their debt, sign a contract, or be willing to take on the service themselves as suggested.
Commissioner Klein?
Yes.
Since we're bringing that up again, do you want staff to prepare a letter to send to the city of Hagerstown? And I would just follow up with what you were all saying, that I know there's some things, I think it was intended to be in perpetuity. I think the city had agreed to that. I think there were actually some references in their minutes from that time saying that they thought that it was gonna be in perpetuity. But one of the reasons why we wanted a contract was so we didn't have the situation come up every year. We wanted a written contract. As Kirk said, a draft was presented to the city administrator. I wanted at least get clarification from the commissioners. You wanted a letter prepared to send to them, sending them the draft contract, and also requesting payment of the money.
I would agree to that, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
All right.
I think it's important that we set deadlines.
Yes.
Every taxpayer has a deadline to pay their property taxes, they have a deadline to pay their water or sewer bill.
Right.
We need to set a deadline, and I think if those deadlines are not met, I think that triggers in my opinion, where we help transition that back to the city. Give them time to buy the equipment, find the location, hire the staff. But I think we need to set deadlines, and I think that's important. I don't want to let another issue skirt by us, especially to this magnitude, go unnoticed again. And I think if the city was under the impression, and again, if there's a document somewhere that says this was meant to be temporary, let me see it. But I don't think the city did intend for this not to be in perpetuity. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made the decision they did last year when they decided to just end it for no other reason.
Right, and I've not seen such a document, and none. I don't think there is such a document that says it was not supposed to be in perpetuity. And one thing, and Sarah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the bill that was sent out in May of 2020 was for the prior year, right? So the bill that'll go out in May of 2021 is for this year. So by the time, when we get to that point, that'll be 2 years. It'll be $800,000, but the services have already been provided. Right, then we'll be entering the next one. So it's not that we bill them ahead of time and they pay, but we provided the service all year long, and then we send them the bill. So so the services have already been provided for almost 2 years without payment. So I agree with you. I just wanted you to.
Well, then what Wayne just said, I think we put a deadline. I guess we come up with a deadline. I guess when you mail the next one out?
May 1st.
May 1st.
All right.
First payment, the most current payment that's due, can we give them a 30-day deadline? And then 30 days from May 1st for the second payment? If not, that may trigger us giving those services, those responsibilities back to the city.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and also, what's interesting to me, many of the individuals that were involved in those discussions 10 years ago are still with county and city today. We know what was agreed upon, and it was in perpetuity. And back then, city acknowledged that that was a tremendous deal for them, and they know that they agreed. Many of the players are still involved with county and city government, and we all know that it was meant for in perpetuity.
Yes, and
And
Commissioner
we've never had
Baker-
any issues up to here just recently. And also, I might add, anytime a citizen is late with a bill or late with taxes, there's an interest charged. So why aren't they being charged an interest for defaulting in their payment? Or maybe they are, I don't know, but,
We do actually have an interest charge on the invoice. It's 1.5% per month.
okay.
And over the delinquent year, it's accumulated to about $50,000.
So that's
Okay.
good to hear.
And to support your comments, as we had many of those people you mentioned,
Oh.
we're here for an open agenda item verifying those details.
We're still with the city and they're still with the county.
Okay, well, staff will put that together.
Okay, any other comments from commissioners? Go to staff comments. Scott Hobbs, I have you listed. Please come forward, introduce yourself in the matter.
Good morning,
Good
Scott
morning.
Hobbs, Director of Engineering. I'm here to request consensus from the board to submit the 2021 Transportation Priorities Letter regarding the Consolidated Transportation Plan of Maryland Department of Transportation. This letter is similar to last year's 2020 letter, and it was sent for your review last week. The project involves priorities such as Interstate 81 widening, Interstate 70 and Maryland 65 interchange improvements, aviation program, the transit program, various railroad projects. And we are seeking here for consensus to move forward with the letter as drafted.
Commissioners,
Any
consensus?
questions?
Yeah, it's fine. I
Okay,
agree.
thank you very much for
Thank
that
you.
letter.
Thank you, Scott.
We'll sign it today. Furthering staff comments, Deb Condo, we'll get Deb first.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I am here to request permission or a vote to approve for hire Melvin Fraley for the position of Traffic Control and Safety Supervisor. It's a grade 13, step 3, annual salary, $54,246.
Commissioners, thoughts, comments? Are you
Motion to
okay?
approve.
Approved, all in favor, aye,
Second.
aye.
Thank you. I'm also requesting approval to hire, Misty Rosenberry for the position of Senior Accountant, position number 96. It's a grade 15, step 1, annual salary, $60,237.
Commissioners, everybody okay with that, all in favor, say aye.
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 Next, I'd like to request permission or approval to hire Thomas Allen Weber, and that is for the Deputy Director of Wireless Communications, position number 308. It's a grade 17, step 1, annual salary, $70,221.
Commissioners, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
And last, I'd like to request approval to hire Robert Jacobs for the position of Operations Manager Fire, position number 1565. It's a grade 14, grade 14, step 1. I apologize, the information isn't on this. I'll have to get that for you.
Folks, those in favor of Mr. Jacobs, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks
Thank you.
very much.
And Krista, I will email that to you as soon as I get back to my office.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sarah Greaves, I think I have you up next for staff comments. Thank you, Deb Condo.
Thank you, Deb.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer. Here to inform you that the Governor has issued proclamation for March 2021 be dedicated as Purchasing Month. The role of purchasing in government has a significant impact on quality, efficiency, and cost control of products and services. Not only is our purchasing department available to assist other departments in the county to ensure quality standards for the procurement of goods and services. They also execute and administer contracts. They develop strategies for the future, support and monitor materials, and are at the forefront of our supplier relations. Rick Curry, our Director of Purchasing, and Brandy Noggle, the buyer, are both members of Maryland Public Procurement Association, also known as MPPA. Rick currently serves as the Vice President, and Brandy serves as the President of our local chapter in Maryland. Washington County's been a member of MPPA for over 40 years, and this association provides purchasing staff with valuable resources related to procurement, from best practices to networking opportunities. And with that, I just wanted to take a moment to extend my appreciation for our entire purchasing department and thank them for their daily efforts and dedication to government procurement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Krista for staff comments, but County Administrator, any comments from you?
Just a few. Thank you, President Klein, and good morning, Commissioners. And I'd also like to pass on my appreciation to our purchasing department on the purchasing week. I see Sarah asked if she could come in and recognize them today. And although we don't have them in the chambers, I hope they're listening, and please pass on our appreciation to them. Just two short things. County offices will be closed on Friday, April 2nd, of Good Friday. And also just want to remind everybody the County Commissioners will not meet next week on April 6th. The next meeting will be on April 13th. That's all I have.
Okay. If Krista has a report, we'll come back to her. If not, we're going to proceed with our scheduled agenda item. Mr. Downey, would you have anything for staff comments?
No comments.
Thank you. All right, we'll proceed then with our next agenda item, dissolution of adequate public facilities ordinance agreement. Joe Baker, please introduce yourself in the matter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jill Baker, Director of the Department of Planning and Zoning. Presented here this morning is a request by the owner-developer of Shenandoah Estates, Section B, to dissolve an existing adequate public facilities ordinance agreement with the county. Shenandoah Estates is an 8-lot single-family subdivision located on the north side of Bakersville Road, just west of Sharpsburg Pike. While this is labeled as an adequate public facilities ordinance agreement, this document, like many others that were entered into at this time, includes an agreement related to excise tax. In this specific case, the developer has already satisfied the APFO school mitigation requirements via payment received by the county in 2008. So that's been satisfied. So the remaining issue that exists with this agreement is the excise tax. The developer is requesting to dissolve this agreement and revert back to the tax requirement in place at the time of the permit application. Currently, the excise tax rate stands at $1 per square foot for new residential construction. That's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So to sort of summarize it, our current excise tax is $1 per square foot, and we're gonna, and the request is to dissolve, what were they paying excise tax before? When
They were paying $13,000 per dwelling unit. That's the agreement standard, is $13,000.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe I think I understand it well. So to me, they shouldn't be forced to do anything at this point since they satisfied everything any worse than $1 per square foot. That's my thinking on it.
They satisfied the APFO part, the excise tax. This has come in before with other developments that at the time, things were kind of in a boom situation and they could afford to incorporate those costs into the development, but that is no longer feasible under today's.
But they're willing to pay the $1.
Yes, they are, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'd be okay with it at $1 square foot, like everybody else is paying.
Commissioners, any other comments? Motion approved.
Motion to approve dissolution of adequate facilities fees ordinance agreement for Shenandoah Estates.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Klein, I will be abstaining from this vote due to a real estate transaction underway with the current developer.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
3, 0, and 1. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Commissioners.
We'll back up here a second, go back to Krista for her staff comments. Krista?
Yes. I have the Washington County Board of Zoning Appeals requesting to reappoint Marvin Gower to serve a second full 3-year term from April 1, 2021 through March 31st, 2024. This is a paid board.
Commissioners, thoughts, comments, motion?
Motion to approve Marvin Gower.
Have first and second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Krista, anything else?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. We'll proceed to the next agenda item. Modification of loan documents for Blair Materials. Susan Small. Susan, please introduce yourself in the matter.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Susan Small, Director of Business Development. I brought forward to you today the support modification for the loan documents, where we have a name change for Blair Materials to iCode Northeast Inc., and to support the modification of the dates that are also within the agreement. Today's motion is to approve the loan documentation modifications, including Blair Materials Inc., name change to iCode Northeast Incorporated, as well as modifications to the dates within the loan documents. The modifications to the Blair Material documents, well, as you recall, in August of 19, Blair Materials purchased the former Radio Shack Distribution Center on Tandy Drive, and they anticipated expanding the 336,000+ square foot facility to just over 500,000 square feet. They had a capital improvement investment of approximately $70 million, and they were to create 40 jobs. Originally, the company expected construction to be completed and production to begin in spring of 2020. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Blair Materials realized a setback and in reaching construction and production goals. During this time, the company also formally changed their name from Blair Materials to iCode Northeast. For formality and legal purposes, we feel the loan documents should reflect the corrected changes to the corporate name as well as new dates as outlined. So we're going to change the date of December 31st, 2020 to June 2021, and a final report due June 2021, and return the signed agreement by July 2021. The termination of the loan offer, if not all completed, would be August of 2021, and receipt of the final occupancy would be due at the end of the year. Any questions?
Commissioners, comments? Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have first and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
We have a public hearing scheduled at 11. We're ahead of schedule, so if the commissioners would permit me, I'd skip down to our 11:30 agenda item, if that's okay. Susan, because at 11,
Is that
11:30 would be
I thought so.
you and Sarah. So please introduce yourself in the matter, and we'll come back for the public hearing at 11.
Good morning.
Just so you know, Susan, I know it's lists Jonathan on here. Susan wasn't going to be here today, but she's here with us. So wherever it's supposed to says Jonathan, it's going to be Susan.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer.
And Susan Small, Director of Business Development.
Here, bringing before you Wessel Boulevard Road Improvement Budget Adjustment. This is really a formality issue, getting the budget associated with a previous agreement that was signed. In April of 2020, the Board of County Commissioners entered into an agreement with the City of Hagerstown. This represented public-private partnership for funding for Wessel Boulevard roadway infrastructure improvements that were necessary for the North Point Development Project. The county opted to utilize the State of Maryland Department of Commerce's Maryland Economic Development Authority Assistance Fund, also known as MEDAF, for a portion of the road work. The road work is estimated at $2.7 million. The MEDAF loan is estimated at $2 million, and any remaining balance would be paid from general fund county reserves. North Point's been moving very quickly on their development, and they are significantly ahead of their original timeline. The road work is nearly complete and invoices for the improvements are coming into the county. And the county needs to establish a budget to provide payment for these invoices. And so at this time, we'd like to ask for your approval. And I apologize, under the recommended motion, it says NA, but we are here to ask for the approval of the budget adjustment that is attached, is not attached, for $2.7 million, $2 million coming from the MEDAF loan and $700,000 from general fund reserves.
Susan, how many jobs is this project
This one was
slated to create?
estimated to be close to 2,000 jobs.
Close to 2,000.
It was nearly 200 million in investment.
Commissioners, comments, thoughts?
Do you need a motion? So you do need a
Yes, sir.
motion.
Yes.
Yes, please.
I would make a motion to approve the budget transfer, and in doing so, I'd also add that not only does this help create 2,000 new jobs in Washington County, but it's also one of our roadways to our largest taxpayer in Washington County, the Valley Mall, in that area. So that certainly helps improve shopping and spending, I would imagine, and help boost our revenues at the other end of Waysville Boulevard as well. So I see it as helping two businesses out.
Commissioners?
And it's a good partnership with the city of Hagerstown, right?
Absolutely.
We're working very closely with the city of Hagerstown for those.
All right, I have a first. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the proposed motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is the prescription specialty cost is,
We do have an outside person coming in for that from CBiz, Steve
are we
Dillman.
ahead, are they here yet, or?
I'm not sure, I'll have to go and
Okay, would you
check.
check? We'll wait
Sure.
for a moment, we'll pause. We are way ahead of schedule.
We may have to take a break if we can.
Okay. Well, Commissioners, we'll just take a 15-minute break while we catch up on time.
Well,
Yeah.
let her first see if that guy's out there, because
Yeah,
we don't even walk in here and we're not here.
well, that's a good point.
I know.
All right, Commissioner, let's take a 15, 20-minute break.
All right.
Yeah, when Chris and I
Thank-
look at it, when we look at these, we try to estimate how much time.
That's
it
okay,
takes
that's no
some-
problem. We're just
we
being
usually
very
have-
efficient.
But, yeah, you're very efficient today, so we're way ahead.
All right, staff, you can go off the air, we'll be
That's the
back in
key
15.
word, today.
We're now going to go to our public hearing. In just one moment. All right, welcome back. We have a public hearing today.
Thank you again,
And
Commissioners.
next on the agenda, pardon me, Susan, let me interrupt you. Next on the agenda is a public hearing concerning the expansion of the Hagerstown, Washington County Enterprise Zone. The purpose of this hearing is to hear public testimony concerning the matter. The procedure is one as follows. We will have staff introduce the matter, after which we'll be open for public comment and testimony. And I think we're going to leave the record open for at least a week for email comments because of our COVID rules. The commissioners may then discuss the issue and take any action that they deem appropriate, including adoption or rejection of the proposal, or they may take the issue under advisement and deliberate at a later date. Susan Small, would you introduce the matter?
Yes, good morning again, Commissioners. Susan Small, Director of Business Development. As stated, we're here to talk about the expansion of the Hagerstown, Washington County Enterprise Zone. The request for the expansion of the Hagerstown, Washington County, Maryland Enterprise Zone, which is located partially within Washington County and the corporate boundaries of the city of Hagerstown. This specific request for the expansion is being made by the county and the city. The proposed expansion area includes Census Tract 10.01 which is industrial parcels of Sweeney Drive and parcels including the Review and Herald Building on Oak Ridge Drive. The expansion will enable the county and the city to better market this area for economic development. And we do have concurrence with the city of Hagerstown and Economic Development Department and the Planning and Zoning Department from both the city and the Hagerstown, or in the county.
Commissioners, questions? We now, since we're going to keep this matter open, there'll be no public comment at this time. We'll open comments for at least a week following this meeting via phone call or email.
Susan, the enterprise zone is an opportunity for businesses looking to locate or expand within the boundaries of the zone to receive additional tax credits to provide for additional investment into facilities and workforce. Is that correct?
Yes, the enterprise zone is a 10-year program, and it does step down in tax incentive, but the great thing about it for expanding businesses or relocating businesses, it doesn't have minimum or maximum on investment and job creation. It does allow them to be a small, medium, or large business, and in this case, well, in all cases, the county would actually realize 50% of that tax back from the state. So we credit it up front, the city or the state returns part of that back to us. So it's a really useful enterprise zone or a really useful tax credit for us, both the city and the county.
We don't have a map, but what this expansion is going to take in Record Herald, right? Is it going to catch any other properties expanded out?
So, yes, it will. Adjacent to the Review and Herald property is the Sweeney Drive property, which is also a rail yard that consists of another less than 100 acres and I can provide you with maps. I apologize that they weren't attached. I can do that right after this meeting.
I was gonna say, she has
I
the
do
map
have
right
one.
there in front of her. You don't wanna look at it, but she can
So
provide.
it's expanding, it's said here, I'm just trying to clarify in my mind, it said here, it mentioned Review and Herald Building and Sweeney Drive, so is there anything beyond that?
Not right now. So this is an expansion can only be done in certain increments, and certain times they have deadlines per expansion. It can only be a certain amount based on how much we currently have, and it has to be within one census tract. So this is just that one census tract, and we have multiple in our current zone. So we will be up for renewal of the enterprise zone at the end of 2022. And at that point, the city and the county planning and economic development have decided to do a comprehensive look at the zone. And we probably will add more in, remove some out where we don't see development occurring at the time, and have it align with our county comprehensive plan. So we are working with Jill Baker on that to do a much more comprehensive look at the entire zone.
Is there a downside to doing that, or any downside?
A comprehensive change?
Yeah, the enterprise
Not at all.
expanding. So it's all good, you can't.
I think it needs to be done. I mean, it's been since 2012 that this was renewed, and it hasn't been looked at since then. So development has obviously occurred and changed in different areas around the county. So to try and focus it better on the right places is what we would try and do.
Susan, you mentioned how as the enterprise zone expands, it's done incrementally, a census tract at a time. What other criteria for property to be in the enterprise zone? Is there a potential that all of Washington County is eligible for that?
No. So it's based on poverty level, it's based on census tract data, just like the opportunity zone is, and the foreign trade zone. The Department of Commerce has specific folks within their incentive group that takes a strong look at all of the data on the census tract. So what I'm asking for today is really for you to approve our application for expansion. We haven't been approved by the Department of Commerce to do this yet at all. They still have to review everything that we submit. And it is a good bit of detail and data from both the city and the county.
So just one correction.
Sure.
Because this is a public hearing, we're gonna wait a week for citizens' comments before we ask for approval, correct?
Right.
So
Yeah,
we'll
we'll keep
bring this back in a week.
So we'll have to come back on the 13th?
April 13th.
Okay.
Yes.
Will the new census affect this? And when we get the new census,
You know, that's a good question. It potentially could, yep, with new data.
All right, Commissioner, you have any other questions?
So given the ongoing health crisis, and the nature of the meeting, the record on this matter will be kept open until, the close of business on Monday, April 5th. Anybody who wishes to submit comments or, testimony can do so to the county clerk. Krista, would you provide your contact information, please?
Any comments or communication can be submitted to khart@washco-md.net or by mail to 100 West Washington Street, Suite 1101, attention County Clerk, Hagerstown, Maryland 21740.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our public hearing. Thank you, Susan.
Susan, can you email that map?
Yep.
to all the
I will do that as soon as I get back.
Have our folks from Prudent arrived? We'll check on that. If not, we'll do the audio visual.
Mr. Connor, I know that Dave Hayes and Scott Hobbs are out there.
Mm-hmm.
For the other 50 items. They said they could go forward without the sheriff, or wanted to wait the sheriff. Also,
Okay, let's move forward with Dave Hayes then, and.
are they both here?
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay, I was gonna say, and Sarah's also said, at the end of the agenda, we have the general fund budget proposed and the capital budget proposed. He's prepared to do that.
Okay. Somebody wanna let the sheriff know we're proceeding without,
I'm right, I have the second one after this, and I can go first and leave the sheriff to be here.
okay, let's do that. Hey, please identify yourself and the matter, sir.
David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services, and we are here to seek approval for the commissioners relative to an additional AFG grant we'd like to submit for portable radio replacements. What we're looking for is a motion to authorize the Division of Emergency Services to reimburse costs associated with the grant writer fees for 18 volunteer fire EMS companies, to include the Hagerstown Fire Department, who will be applying for an AFG regional grant. The authorization is also to include covering the 10% cost share for all participating agencies in the event of a successful AFG. You obviously can modify that motion if you choose. The volunteer fire companies along with the Hagerstown Fire Department are applying for an AFG grant to aid the county in the replacement of the 450 megahertz portable radios that have exceeded their manufactured recommended lifespan of 10 years. The current portable radio inventory is no longer supported by Motorola, and parts availability is limited to those in current inventories as the parts are no longer manufactured. The Division of Emergency Services would be included in the grant application to create additional opportunity for cost savings to county budgets. If awarded, the AFG would cover 90% of the purchase costs associated with the replacement of portable radios on qualified fire and EMS apparatus. In the absence of a successful AFG, the county would have to spend in excess of $2.4 million to effect replacement of the P25 450 megahertz portable radios sometime in the next 24 to 36 months. The portable radios in question were purchased in 2005-2006. If Washington County is successful in obtaining a regional portable radio AFG, the county would benefit from future budgetary savings in excess of $2 million. It is not expected that the volunteer fire and EMS companies have sufficient funding to effect the purchase of replacement radios. The fiscal impact is $9,000 for the 18 fire EMS companies, the volunteers, $500 for the Hagerstown Fire Department, and $500 for DES, and that can be covered through projected year-end cost savings in existing DES budgets. We have concurrences from the Chief Financial Officer.
So if it wouldn't be for this grant, we'd be waiting, and it would cost us 2.4 million.
Yeah, at some point, we're really beyond the life expectancy of the current radios. They're workhorses, but they are almost 15 years old. So yes, the goal with this is to try to drive additional budgetary savings to capital.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The first and second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Next item up. We are going to go, Mr. Hayes, are you ready to present the other item?
Yeah, the sheriff's not here, but I think he'd be okay if we went ahead and, in essence of time, and move
Does
forward.
someone want to notify the sheriff if he's on his way, we're okay without him, if it's appropriate? All right, please introduce yourselves in the matter. Thank you.
Again, David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services.
Good morning, Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering.
Good morning.
And if he joins us, Sheriff Mullendore is included on the art, just for the record. The recommended motion, discussion about capital fundraising initiative and a request to forward fund up to $1 million for acquisition of audiovisual systems and furniture for the new Public Safety Training Center. The report, the Public Safety Training Center continues its build out with planned completion in early 2022. During the design phases for construction of the academic portions of the Public Safety Training Center, cost-saving strategies were employed to benefit the county through breakouts of certain aspects of the building components. These strategies utilize a capital fundraising initiative similar to initiatives developed in other jurisdictions to support construction of comparable facilities. The construction award for the Public Safety Training Center included the construction of the buildings and most of the interior components necessary to bring the Public Safety Training Center to operational status. Most of the audiovisual components and furniture were withheld from the building contract as part of a cost-saving strategy. This strategy was employed for three distinct reasons. Early purchase bids may not include costs for the most up-to-date technologies. Technology trends show decreases in cost as newer technologies are developed, and cost savings are captured by eliminating product markup that is normally assessed by the general contractor. Staff have developed a plan to fund audiovisual equipment and furniture through a combination of grant funding and a capital fundraising initiative involving public-private partnerships. A grant totaling of $178,822 was secured for various audiovisual equipment and furniture for use in the Emergency Operations Center, which will be located within the Public Safety Training Center, and a capital fundraising initiative planned to begin this year. If future grants and the capital fundraising initiative do not generate the remainder of the funding to pay for the audiovisual equipment and furniture, staff may request local funding in next year's budget. For the board's consideration is a request to authorize staff to proceed with a capital fundraising initiative and to forward fund an amount of up to $1 million to accommodate the construction schedule needs. And again, the fiscal impact is up to $1 million, and you will see an attachment of the donor schedule, which is a representation as example only at this point of what that public-private partnership and the fundraising strategy might look like. And I'll let Scott add any conversation to something I may have missed out.
Let me ask you a quick question though. So for clarity, this is something that wasn't included in the budget for the training center. You're asking for a forward fund of $1 million, and you plan on utilizing other methods to make up that $1 million? Is that what this is all about? Okay.
Grants and a fundraising effort.
Yeah.
We're currently on schedule to have the building completed in the spring of 2022. In the planning phase of the project, we visited various jurisdictions, and they implemented a plan with this initiative, this fundraising initiative. So we'd like to move forward with that. As Dave mentioned in the discussion, there's various cost-saving measures doing it this way, and each one of the projects will be advertised as far as the furniture and the AV and brought back to the board for a recommendation of award based on the bids that we received for this.
Commissioners, comments, thoughts?
So have you applied for any grants yet?
The $178,000 grant was received as part of this. There's also a potential for that again this next year, and then they'll continue to see.
So that $178,000 be taken off of the $1 million?
It'll be applied above that. So we're requesting $1 million be forwarded, and the 178,000 to go towards
Well, you're-
towards this effort also.
You're saying up to, that doesn't mean
So-
you're gonna spend a whole million.
Up to $1
Right.
million based on the bids.
So I think that to answer Commissioner Baker a little, the actual projected cost when the bids went out, when it was pulled out, was $1.2 million for the audiovisual. So that's why we're still looking up to $1 million.
And as the bids come in, if it's less, of course, we'd request up to, that's why we're requesting up to the $1 million based on the estimates and then the bids received.
How do the donations play into this? Again, this is going to offset that dollar amount?
Yes, that's the intent, is to try to raise $1 million through a capital fundraising initiative.
What's your timeline for that, to start, kickstart, to hopefully have the funding that you need through donations only?
So the goal is to get the fundraising initiative kicked off here late spring, early summer, and move that through, obviously, the completion of the center. The reason we need to forward fund this ahead of what we know as far as donations is the construction schedule needs many of these components to be included as the construction progress moves forward. So,
Okay. I know I've heard from a couple families who, they feel they have about naming rights for the building itself. What's the county's position on that?
So the way we have this structured wasn't the building itself to be named, but basically they have the ability to name through donations and monetary values certain parts of the building, basically rooms, so to speak. And one of the reasons we've shied away from the building as a whole is there may be several people that maybe are deserving of that type of recognition, and in order to not offend anybody or leave somebody out or make it look like somebody's contribution over 40 years wasn't as valuable, we chose to stay away from that. If the commissioners want to go down that road, that certainly is your prerogative, but we have not really endorsed the full naming of the building itself.
I know that would be difficult. We have a lot of heroes
Yes.
in Washington County. But I suppose there's an opportunity. I mean, these are large dollar amounts. Maybe one of our philanthropic individuals in the county who might be able to donate that money, or families can come together and maybe fundraise
Yeah.
the money if they want to name
Right.
a room after a loved one.
And
They can hold their own event to raise money for that.
Exactly. How they get to a dollar value that may eventually be listed here, and I just want to emphasize, this is something we put together as an example. So if the commissioners have input into what you think these dollar amounts, larger, smaller, whatever, by all means, reach out to Scott or myself or the sheriff, and we certainly can make those modifications.
I'm sure you're gonna make us aware of these donations and the interest on these, right, in advance of accepting them, so we have some idea of what's going on. Is that okay?
One of the purposes was to make you aware of this and see if this was something that the board was interested in doing.
Right.
And then staff can obviously look through it and create more additional details and provide to you. But before they went any further with this, I think they.
Well, I think people do want their name on a building, and I don't like the idea of naming a building after somebody, but some integral parts of the building, like your example show, I think there's people who want their name, they're vested in the community, they're vested in this cause, they're vested in training. I think you're gonna get some good response on that, and I think they like the plaque on the room. Everybody's proved that.
The Maryland Theater did a good job with their donors and
Yeah.
representing their sponsorships.
The center that resounded the most and sticks with me, and I think Scott would agree, was Chester County, PA. That's where we had saw this first, and they had a pretty notable wall and had some big dollars hanging on that wall, and it was well displayed. It was very respectful as far as the recognition of the donors, or at least whoever they were, the donation was in memory of. And this would probably be something I would expect, if you can recall the design of the Public Safety Training Center. We have a big atrium going down through the middle of it.
Right.
I think this donor wall likely would reside somewhere in there, but that's yet to be decided, but that's where I would.
Yeah, I would think you'd copy off some of the successful projects like the theater or the place you talked about. And yeah, I think it's a great idea,
The
actually.
bricks at the theater are
Right.
the project.
Yeah,
I have a brick.
$1,000 a shot, bricks.
Hey, commissioners, any comments, motion to,
We haven't done any naming rights on any part of the facility.
No, sir.
Up to this point.
No. I think the road is the only thing that's named as Public Safety Drive, so it's not even named after.
Right. And $1 million comes from
That was gonna be my question.
$1 million, if it's a forward funding, will just basically come from reserves until we get the donation.
Be replaced up to the value.
Of the donations and the grants that we're continuing to pursue.
Right, yep, and,
Is there a timeline on this?
to have it done, or?
For the million, yes, for the million to be paid back.
I'd probably have to defer to Scott on where we're gonna need that cash.
I think we foresee is, trying to obtain most of the funding by the opening of the building, and then subsequently, as the, Service Academy comes in and the emergency services has their training set up for the summer of next year, hopefully we'll have, donations in line at that point in time.
Your question is, when do we need the million though, right? Forward funded?
No, when
Okay.
it's going to be paid.
Understood.
Okay.
I'd be okay with, you looking for a motion?
I think we need one, so.
I'd motion to approve the forward funding of $1 million.
Second.
I have a first and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, everyone.
We appreciate the support.
Thank you.
And if you,
Could you notify the
Dave
sheriff that
mentioned it to me the other day, I did stop by, if you I come by there, I mean, the construction is it's moving quickly down there, so if you get a chance to stop by.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just rode through and looked, and the walls are coming up, and, great, so down that way.
Yeah, I just rode by. We both were, we're down
Okay.
Fairplay.
Yeah, well, that's when I was at Fairplay, Dave said that he had stopped in, so on my way back, I stopped, and
Thank you. Have our prudent folks arrived?
He is not here, but Susan Buchanan is ready with, George Newman for the 1205 agenda item.
Yes. Please, would you have them come in? Gentlemen, we're skipping down to 12:05.
Well, you redeemed yourself, you usually go on it now.
yeah.
Yeah, I like this.
I like it, but just wanna make sure we don't miss it.
Always accusing. It's hard to tell.
It is hard to tell. We looked through it on the weekend, there was some more time or less time.
Gordy?
Hey, how are you? Good.
Hello, good morning still. Susan, would you please introduce yourself and your guest and the matter?
Yes, Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management. With me today is George Newman III, President and CEO of Washington County Community Action Council. We're requesting a motion to approve the resolution of support authorizing the submission of the county's application to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program funding on behalf of the Community Action Council, requesting up to $9,441,971 and accept funding as awarded. Also requesting approval to move forward with the execution of associated grant agreement with the Department of Housing and Community Development and subrecipient agreement with the Washington County Community Action Council upon a successful award of funding. The Emergency Rental Assistance Program is a federally funded program designed to assist households that are unable to pay rent and utilities. Additional funding has been provided to this program to assist households impacted by the economic disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. DHCD has allocated Washington County up to the $9,441,971 of ERAP funding in FY21. These funds will be sub-granted to the Washington County Community Action Council to distribute to local households impacted by the pandemic who request assistance with their rent and utility payments. If approved today, the county will submit the application requesting the allocated funds, and upon award, enter into the subrecipient agreement with the Washington County Community Action Council. As stated, the grant will provide up to $9,441,971 for the Washington County Community Action Council, and then also the Washington County Office of Grant Management will utilize up to $10,356 of the grant funding for the cost of administering and monitoring the grant. There is no matching funds requirement associated with this grant, and I'd like to give Dory opportunity to speak a little bit about the details of the program.
Well, thank you all for the opportunity to address you. And I know many of you, and it's good to see people in person finally. CAC did not close for a day when COVID hit. I pulled my senior staff into my office and we had a discussion. Some wanted to close for a couple weeks and see what happens, and others just wanted to figure out how we were going to adapt and continue to provide services. So we basically just changed our model of how we provided services, but we have continued to provide every service to the community throughout the entire COVID period. Transportation is still running the Hopewell Express 24/7. Actually added an additional bus during the peak times to kind of reduce the number of riders on each bus. We're also providing a shuttle for homeless folks that test positive for COVID to leave Meredith and go to a location for isolation. And our energy department has processed 4,400 applications so far, and there's still the final quarter of that program for this year. That exceeds the total number of applications that were processed last year. We've seen a lot of new clients that have never needed our services before have found themselves because of loss of income, a parent having to stay home with a child that's homeschooling, or jobs being terminated in general. They had their budgets based on 2 incomes, now they're down to 1 income. So we've seen an increase in our energy. Our food pantry served 3,769 households last year with 94,225 pounds of food, which is a high for us. And our housing staff has processed 816 households for assistance, and that's actual assistance provided. To date, it's over $1 million. It's hard to give you an actual figure because it literally changes every day. We're still getting applications every day for folks that are behind on their rent and are looking to get caught up. I mention all of that because I know this grant at $9.4 million is a lot of money. We're already administering many COVID grants through the federal and state governments. We fully intend to staff up with this application. This will go through, as Susan mentioned, through September of 2022, and then there is actually ERAP 2 that will be coming out that will go through 2025, and the state will be getting an additional $300 million with that. Based on the formula, Washington County probably will expect several million when ERAP 2 is released. The staff that we're going to hire for this are going to specifically do ERAP. So when we start to get the number of applications that we anticipate, we will be able to process those and turn them around and get landlords paid, property management companies paid as quickly as possible. Currently, it's usually a 3 to 4 day turnaround. With the eviction moratorium being extended yesterday through June, that's certainly going to impact the number of applications we get. We're going to do a lot of outreach, a lot of education for renters and property managers, for landlords. We never thought we would have this kind of money, but there are restrictions with it. For example, with your arrears, you can't go back past March 13th of 2020. So folks that do owe significant money that in arrears, we need to get them caught up now, because as funding continues to come out, they're not going to go back to the start of the pandemic. They're going to have those dates advanced. So we're going to do a lot of outreach and education for the community as well.
Gordy, just a quick question. You've never had this kind of money before because this is COVID related.
Correct.
And you just sort of touched on it. You guys do a fantastic job. These are just curious questions for me. The $9 million is it possible to use $9 million for rent and utilities, or can you expand that? And I'm just curious, can you use it for something else also? You just said there was some restriction.
Yeah, this grant is specific to housing and utilities. They do expand housing a little bit to include internet It can also provide some other services like security deposits. But this, there's no food for this one. There's no hotel stays. We did a very non-scientific survey of local property management companies and the Landlord Association. We only got about a 10% response, but of that, it was about 1.7 million that was owed to just those entities that responded. The city of Hagerstown is owed well over $1 million. With theirs, it's probably closer to 2 at this point. So as long as people come in and ask for the assistance they need,
it's good to have it.
We'll be able to spend it.
It's a county-wide program.
Absolutely, yes, this encompasses everybody. We have partners not only in the greater Hagerstown area, but we work with organizations in Hancock and other parts of the county that we're going to do outreach to them as well. So if there's an issue with being able to have their residents get in, we can go to them, or we can provide transportation, just so that, yes, this is a county-wide, and priority is given to 80% or below area median income.
Does this just go to tenants and which is great, and landlords who are getting killed probably? Does it go to it's not eligible for homeowners who are in foreclosure or owing money to the bank, which is also the landlord?
Unfortunately, at this point, it is not.
Okay.
There's actually a document that the U.S. Treasury put out. It's 10 riveting pages of questions and answers.
Are payments direct to the landlord if owed, or how would that work?
Yes, payments are made directly to the landlord. Okay. The tenant will provide their income to make sure they qualify. With COVID, there's some pretty specific documentation that's required, and with the previous grant, the CARES grant we got through the county, Susan and I spent significant time establishing what was acceptable. So when the Treasury audits the state, who audits the county, who audits us, everybody's happy with what's been collected.
Gordy, correct me if I'm wrong, but the some of the earlier COVID relief money we got couldn't be used to pay utilities if that utility was owned by like a government entity, like the
Correct.
Hagerstown City Light Department or County Water Sewer. It looks like that's not an issue this time.
No.
For rent.
No,
utility assistance.
Yes, public utilities are eligible for this money. Town of Williamsport, I believe, is around $250,000 that they're owed, so we'll be able to assist them with this money. But again, it's going to require the folks that have these arrears to fill out the appropriate documentation. The Treasury is requiring substantial data collection this time, even if someone starts the process and they don't bring in the necessary paperwork, we still have to report on them just coming in the door asking for help.
Okay.
Commissioners, thoughts, comments?
I'd motion to approve it, Emergency Rental Assistance Program grant application submission.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Further decline,
They're here?
yes, Steve Dillon is here.
All right.
Go back to the.
We can go back up to our prescription specialty cost management. Thank you again. Come back
Thank you.
with 9 million more next time. Thank you very
There
much.
you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. See you.
Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourselves and the matter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Deborah Kondo, Deputy Director of Human Resources.
And I'm Steve Dillman with CVIS. I'm the benefits consultant to the county.
Sarah Green, Chief Financial Officer.
For the record, I'm going to abstain from any conversation. I'm on some specialty medicines, and I don't have any appearance that I'm in favor or against. So I will direct the meeting, but I will have no comment. Thank you. Please move forward.
Commissioners, we'd like to present to you information on Prudent RX, which is a specialty cost management. This is being presented by myself, Steve Dillman of CBiz, and Sarah Greaves, CFO. We would like to present to you a PowerPoint slide presenting information on our membership, those members that participate in our health insurance, as well as the utilization of prescription services. We do currently have 3 tiers of copays. Generic prescriptions are $15, name brand are $35, and specialty drugs are $50. The Prudent RX Specialty Cost Management Program would provide cost savings for specialty prescriptions. There are currently 39 members who utilize specialty prescriptions. The county spent $1,536,897 towards specialty medications from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st of 2020. The employee's member cost was $8,375. Implementing the Prudent RX copay program will have a projected savings for Washington County government of $185,984. The program saves both the employee and the employer out-of-pocket expenses. Steve, if you would.
So the Prudent RX program is relatively new, and part of the challenge that we have in the benefit world is that specialty drugs, the cost is continuing to increase. That's a good thing because these drugs are life-saving in some cases and life-changing. So there's a very positive thing. But to Deb's point, you spent last year $1.6 million on specialty meds. This is a program, Prudent RX is a program that essentially they would take over managing the prescription. The manufacturers of these prescriptions have many programs, coupons and discounts and so on, that can be accessed. And so in order to incentivize employees to do that, there's a couple things we would need to do to the plan. So for all specialty meds, we would need to separate into a new tier. So if you're one of these 39 employees last year, we don't know who the folks will be next year, but chances are a lot of those folks, these are ongoing meds, that they would need to agree to participate in the Prudent RX program, and their copay would go from $50 to 30% of the cost of the drug. So if it's a $1,000 drug, their deductible or their copay would be $300, but only if they don't agree to participate in Prudent RX. As long as they agree, then there is no copay; it's zero. So this program would save the employee all their copays, whether it's 30% or even $50 per script. Wouldn't cost them anything. And then what it saves the county, our projection is that it would save the county roughly $185,000 next year in savings. The employees would save what Deb had said was last year, their cost was about $8,300. So the employees would save, the county would save. The catch to it is they have to participate in Prudent RX. Prudent RX is part of CVS Aetna, so all these scripts would have to be filled through the CVS program for it to be covered. And I think that's essentially what's expected of the employees. So zero out of cost for the employees and the county would save. So now the challenge is these programs or the savings is incumbent on the drug manufacturers continuing their coupons and discounts and some of those kinds of things. If, for example, a specialty drug does not offer any savings anymore, that would be a drug that probably down the road would come off of the list, and then that employee would not be penalized. They would just go back to a $50 copay for that med and go forward. So there really is not, and Prudent RX takes care of most of all the paperwork for employees. So the employee really doesn't get there's no administrative hassle really for the employees other than having to enroll.
One question, go back to the 30%, when would that happen? If,
So this program would be effective July 1 with the
Okay.
renewal. So for all scripts, but there's a transition. So if we go to the last page of this, or I'm sorry, the next to last page, where it says the member experience. This is the transitional period. So for 60 to 90 days prior to go live, and so that's why they need to get approval for the program now in advance of July 1, so that they can do all the communication to the members and so on. Initially, it's going to be to those 39 members that are on specialty drugs today. So it's not a huge.
if I was on a specialty drug, you're confusing me, and I apologize for that, but if I was on a specialty drug, what would spur me to have to pay $300 for a $1,000 prescription?
If you did not want to participate in this program. So, and let's say that you're getting your specialty med at Walgreens and you don't want to go to CVS. Okay, but this program is again, because the insurance carrier for the county is CVS Aetna, they're managing this drug program, so that what they're saying is, because the way this program works, it's only through CVS.
So if I didn't participate, I couldn't come back to the county and say, I want my $50 deductible.
No.
I'd be paying $300 for $1,000.
Correct.
I guess I just gotta hear how much of a hardship is to participate.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's part of it. I mean, this is the forcing mechanism to get folks to participate. I mean, we could waive the 30%, but then very few people would participate. So in order to drive the $185,000 of savings for the county, there's got to be somewhat of a forcing mechanism to the employee that says, you're going to need to participate in this, or it's going to cost you 30%.
Got it.
And in order for an employee to participate, their cost is $8,375 a year. Is that the employee cost or the county cost?
No, so the 8,300 was what so the 39 people last year that were getting these meds, their copay costs for those prescriptions, all those 39 people combined, I think there were 347 prescriptions actually. Their cost to get those scripts filled was $8,300. What we're suggesting with this program is, as long as everyone participates, that number goes to zero, so that none of the employees would pay anything towards their cost. The drugs would be free.
Okay.
And this program fits into our current program, right?
Yes.
It's sort of an additional,
So you gotta,
that's what
you
you're
gotta go
talking
to
about when you have to
CVS
change the plan and.
to get the program.
Correct. Yep.
Just-
You have 3 tiers today. Essentially what you would be doing is creating a 4th tier for specialty med. That would be this 30% copay if you don't participate.
Okay, because that's the question that I had. How does it fit into our current plan? That answers it. So it'd be a tier 4. As long as our employees participate in that, they will not have to pay, there will be no copay at all. So they'll actually save money.
Correct.
And the county will save money. The only time they don't is if they don't participate in the plan, and then it will affect them.
Did I hear how we have to participate though if you're on a specialty drug? Did you say that already?
You
What do you
have
have
to
to do, what do I have to do to be
So
considered
if you-
participant?
Right, if he's a participant and he takes his prescription to CVS
Yeah, what-
and they
what
say,
has to
oh, it's
happen?
gonna be $500, what does he do?
What does he do?
So what's going to happen is, because we can identify the folks today that are on specialty meds, and so Aetna will reach out to those folks to start that process of educating them and explaining what the program is, and get them, and you as the patient would have to agree, yes, I'll participate in the program. Once you sign off on that, then Prudent RX gets into the middle of it and takes care of working with the drug manufacturer and with CVS.
So it's not a real burden on the employee.
No.
Shouldn't be.
You just
So
gotta,
the employee saves $50 deductible and the county saves $185,000.
Correct.
but you gotta go to CVS.
But you have to go to CVS.
Yeah.
Right. So, and if I'm a new, if I go to the doctor and he prescribes me specialty medication, I mean, we're gonna have to obviously educate our employees as to that, because I may just go to Walgreens like I normally do, or any other, pharmacy. Then I guess, how would I know? I would only know that when they told me I owed $300 or whatever the amount is.
Typically, with these drugs, again, because they're so expensive, typically there's a pre-approval process, so that
okay.
prescription would go to Aetna, and they would need to approve it. But that flags it, wait, this is specially meant, let's reach out to this person, explain what the program is, get them to participate, and then they take it from there.
Okay, I mean, that's what I was hoping you would say, because, you know, I'd like our employees to not be blindsided by that they're doing the pre-approval process, Aetna reaches out to them, and then they can have an opportunity to sign up for the program.
So basically, if, again, I'm that guy with a $3,000 prescription of some type, is there any circumstance, if I'm willing, all of a sudden I get it yesterday, doctor says you gotta take this, any loophole that would cost me 10% of that, which is $3,000 or whatever?
No, I mean, and typically these drugs are, the vast majority of them are injectables, so I mean, you're going to the doctor to have these things taken care of and so on, so I mean, there wouldn't be any responsibility by the employee.
And if that specialty drug comes off the list, then you can go back to the normal Aetna, our current plan, and then it would just be back to the $50 deductible, or whatever the deductible is.
And that's something that they're gonna monitor on an ongoing basis, because so if all of a sudden a specialty drug manufacturer discontinues a coupon program or a discount program, then that would be reevaluated as to whether it would continue in the program or not. But to this point in time, I mean, it's been, you know, it's growing, and the drug manufacturers are expanding these programs, not reducing.
It's not reducing. Okay, thank you.
I have a question about, in the slides, I guess it's it doesn't matter which one, but you have it broken down by the drug class and the estimated savings for that individual who utilizes that particular type of drug. For transplant-related drugs, is that a cost increase to the employee? Estimated savings, it's negative 1,425. So would those individuals see a higher price? And the savings is just averaged out?
I would have to check on the transplant one, because it shouldn't. Yeah, for whatever reason with that drug, it may actually cost more. There would be more. I don't know. We'd have to double check that one.
Okay.
Commissioners, mind if I ask one question?
Oh, you go ahead.
You're going to a doctor for the first time, and you're filling out those forms, and it says pharmacy of choice. You'll want to put CVS, correct?
Yes.
Not the pharmacy in your hometown, to be part of the plan.
I mean, typically you aren't explaining what your pharmacy of choice is. I mean, but with the doc, it's going to say, who's your pharmacy? And they say Walgreens. Okay, that's fine. But this drug, when it's been prescribed, that will hit Aetna, and that will get it flagged, so that then they'll reach back out to you and say, here's this program, let me explain how it works, blah, 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 blah,
But
blah.
you'd be wise just to incorporate CVS
Yes.
into your life.
Mhm.
Right, sorry to interrupt there. Terry, I apologize.
Did you say this was still optional for the employee? Or?
Well, it is optional. I mean, they don't have to participate in Prudent RX, but if they don't, then their copay for that drug is going to be 30% of the cost. So
And that's what they're paying now.
No, they're paying $50 today.
So if the injectable was $1,000 and they paid 30%, that would be $300.
If they don't participate.
But we're doing it as a
You're probably
whole.
gonna have a strong arm against it.
Yeah, as an employer, if we select to do this, then everyone would be opting in, and only opting out would be the choice.
I just don't want to get a phone call from an employee saying, Randy, my last prescription was $2,000 and it cost me $600.
I think when Steve was discussing it, it's pretty much a win always for the employee, because the employee's only responsibility is to enter into the Prudent RX program, which is relatively simple and easy to do because they already have a lot of the information on file. And so it's always a win for the employee to get that $50 copay down to nothing. for their prescription. And I think if we want to circle back to this transplant negative, which I'm not sure where the negative came from, but under that estimated savings, that's not directly related to the employee. That's related to the cost overall, which is really the county's responsibility to pay. And so I think if we just, that wouldn't cost the employee any more money.
Do you anticipate any of the employees not wanting to participate?
It could happen that an employee would not want to participate, but we have to keep in mind, I think that there are 39 that this would primarily impact. So a lot less than our total participants that we have in the county. And overall, these participants are used to paying that $50 every time they go and get the injectable or whatever they're getting. So I think it would be a benefit to employees.
The other thing I would point to follow up on what Sarah said was what Prudent RX does. Prudent is the one that understands the drug manufacturer programs and so on. So they're the ones that are, and what Prudent gets paid for is to be the one on top of what the discount programs are and the coupons and so on to get the cost of the drug down. So there's nothing that the employee really has to do. Again, it's sort of turnkey. The employee just says, all right, I'll participate. And then from that point forward, they're just, the prescription's getting filled. They're going to have the injection or get the prescription, whatever, from CVS. And it's the same as it normally is today. So there's really no downside. Only, the employee then now no longer has any cost, and the county saves significantly. So again, this is a relatively new program, so I want you to be clear. This is not something that's been around a long time. Specialty meds are continuing to increase, and they're a bigger and bigger percentage of your overall medical cost. So this is a pretty innovative program that, but from what we've seen, and we've implemented this with other counties around the country, but you are still kind of one of the earlier adopters. But that's a good thing because there could be a point in time as more organizations get onto this bandwagon that the drug manufacturers may do away with it. But there is savings here to be had today.
So just a summary for me. No cost to the employee if they participate. I can't imagine why they wouldn't. Saves the county $185,000, and everybody here has assured me that unless it's on the employee's part, that they won't get a bill or pay 30% of anything. And the last thing is, Prudent makes their money just from charging the county the policy.
Correct.
Or the premium.
They're keeping 25% of the savings. That's how they get paid.
It's a shared savings program.
Yep, right. So they don't get paid unless they save you
So then
money.
it's not a true $185,000 savings to the county. You have to take 25% off of that.
I think that's
No.
already taken into account.
Yeah, the actual savings,
And this is for how long? Is this a 1-year contract, a 2-year contract?
It's a 1-year contract, and I think, Steve, if I'm remembering conversations that we had previously, the employee would be responsible for entering into the Prudent RX program annually, and then once they do it one time, it's good for the whole year, right?
correct, yep. And the actual savings are $247,000. So they're taking 25%. So the 185 is the net number, you would realize.
Since it's only a year, I'd be okay with it, just for a test. But I hope I don't get a phone call from somebody saying, cost me $600 today.
Commissioners' thoughts, comments, or motions?
And that's my concern. I just don't want to get, I want our employees to be satisfied.
So if there's a specialty drug on the list that somebody's on, and the pharmaceutical kickback goes away, it automatically reverts to the $50? Or is there gonna be some situation where, well, the program's gone away, but it's still on our specialty list, so unfortunately, because you're in this program, you're stuck with 30% of the cost?
No, we can confirm that question, but the way it typically has worked is if a drug discontinues the discount program, the employee wouldn't be responsible for the difference. So but that's again that's part of Prudent RX's management of the overall program.
Commissioners' thoughts? Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A first and a second, and for the record, I'm going to abstain. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming in. Next is our 12:10 agenda item. I believe, if I'm correct, following our schedule today would be the high-intensity drug trafficking, Sergeant John Martin and Allison. If you're listening, please come in. Thank you, folks, for wiping down.
Where we at now, John? We ahead?
Go ahead, I'll come on.
Good morning, almost. Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself and the matter.
Allison Hartshorn, Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management.
Sergeant John Martin, Sheriff's Office, Director of the Narcotics Task Force. Here before you this morning, Commissioners, for our yearly HIDA grant. It's the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Grant. It's a grant that reimburses for up to 3 deputies assigned to the Narcotics Task Force and overtime funds in the amount of $8,935 per agent is what it's capped at. It's a yearly grant we've been getting since 2016.
Allison, any further information?
No,
Commissioners?
no further information, just looking to move to approve the acceptance of funds that they have received.
Motion to approve.
So I have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
Yes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are the overdoses up in Washington County, or?
This year so far, we're actually down a little bit, but I'd say that knock on wood. The end of last year, they were high, but we're coming down a little bit.
Good. Thank you, sir. Next up, I think we're waiting on Eric to
Yep,
join
he's
in,
out in the
okay?
lobby.
So wait a moment for his arrival. Good afternoon, everyone. Please introduce yourselves and the matter.
Allison Hartshorn, Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management, and joining me.
Eric Hodge, Emergency Management Specialist. Today we're here to recommend a motion to approve the submission of fiscal year 22 State Homeland Security Grant to the Maryland Emergency Management Agency in the amount of $175,792 and accept funding as awarded. Pardon me, I'm gonna put on the necessities. The State Homeland Security Grant Program is administered by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and passes through the State Emergency Management Agency to be distributed to local jurisdictions. The program is intended to enhance and maintain current Homeland Security initiatives as they pertain to prevention, preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. The grant will pay partial salary for the Emergency Management Specialist and a part-time position within the Washington County Sheriff's Office for the Incident Management Team coordination, and projects and other costs which include training, equipment, public outreach, and response capabilities. The Office of Grant Management has reviewed the grant guidelines. The performance period for this federal grant is September 1, 2021 through August 31st, 2023. There's no matching fund requirement associated with this grant. However, at least 25% of the grant funds must be spent on law enforcement related tasks or equipment. The fiscal impact to the county is zero. It provides $175,792 for emergency management related expenses, which may otherwise be charged to the emergency management budget.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have first and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Next agenda item, Emergency Management Performance Grant. Welcome back. Please introduce yourselves in the matter.
Allison Hartshorn, Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management, and joining me is.
Hericage Emergency Management Specialist.
And thank you for your understanding. I do that so our clerk can
Of course.
delineate the
Of course.
differences in the meetings. Thank you so much.
We're here to respectfully recommend a motion to approve the submission of the application to the Maryland Emergency Management Agency in the amount of $102,817.11 and accept funding as awarded. This is for the Emergency Management Performance Grant, otherwise known as EMPG. It is to provide federal funds to states to assist local, tribal, and territorial emergency management agencies to obtain the resources required to support the national preparedness goals associated with the areas and core capabilities. The performance period for this federal grant is October 1, 2021 through August 1st, 2023. There is a 100% match requirement associated with this grant, which is covered by the Emergency Management Operating Budget. It provides for $102,817.11 for emergency management related expenses, which may otherwise be added to the emergency management budget. Matching funds will be in the form of budgeted salaries, which is subject to approval in the county's operating budget for fiscal year 22.
Commissioners, thoughts, comments?
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know Ryan is out there.
Okay. Thank you, folks.
Tom Brown, I haven't seen you for a while.
Being quiet. Okay, I know Ryan was there, so.
Gentlemen, good afternoon. Please introduce yourselves and the matter, please.
Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works.
Ryan Crabtree, Black Rock Golf Course Manager.
We're here to present the proposed FY22 budget for the Black Rock Golf Course. The Black Rock Golf Course provides 18 holes of quality golf to the residents of Washington County and surrounding areas. We operate several leagues. We're going to host 54 tournaments and fundraising events for community organizations. We also host the Public Schools Varsity Golf League and recreational clinics. The Black Rock Golf Course is organized under the Parks and Recreation Department and directly managed by the golf course manager, which is Ryan, and a golf course superintendent. And the Black Rock Golf Course is overseen by an advisory board of directors.
In 2019, we started to see our rounds of golf increase and play exploded once the course was allowed to reopen in May of 2020. That trend remained strong through 2020, a total of 23,000 rounds of golf in FY 2020. In FY 21, we've seen the demand continue and already have done 22,000 rounds of golf in anticipation that we may experience a dip in play once people begin traveling more or returning to a more rigid work schedule. However, we did project approximately 18,000 more in golf revenues compared to FY 21.
So when we look at our overall budget, on the revenue side, the primary revenue streams for the golf course, the primary one being the green fees and the associated cart rentals. We also have pro shop sales, restaurant sales, and then the difference between the revenue and expenses comes from the county's general fund. In total, the golf course budget increased over FY21 by $22,790, or just under 2%, and that increase is primarily the result of the proposed step and cost of living adjustment. As far as the expense side, those are divided up into the general operations, clubhouse operations, course maintenance, and the restaurant operations. So when we look at the general operations, that mostly covers the overhead for the insurance, the liabilities, utilities, office supplies, and the overall change there was about $3,400, which was primarily due to an adjustment in 38 $190 for unemployment compensation. Moving to the clubhouse operations, that includes the wages for the golf course manager and the part-time pro shop staff. We have a minor increase there of about $4,200, 1.6%, mostly due to wage increases. The largest area is the maintenance side, which includes the full-time and part-time wages for the costs associated with the equipment and course maintenance, and there we have an increase of about $18,000 or 2.5%. The last area is the restaurant, which includes wages for part-time staff and the cost of the food and beverage sold. And I think it was here last week we talked about the restaurant operation. Since COVID, the full restaurant has been closed, and the sales in the past year have mostly included the prepackaged snacks and beverages. But we look at resuming offering that service, and the proposed budget is decreasing there on the expense side about $3,200 or 3%. So I think overall the trend is we continue to see very strong demand. I mean, Ryan, if you want to share about some of the days we've had already, now that the weather's broken, that continues to look promising and trying to hold our expenses in check.
Yeah, here lately we've had over 120. The one day we had 165 players. A lot of locals that have repeat business. Also seeing some from other counties come into play, so that's a positive.
I think last year you said COVID wiped out a lot of the tournaments and the fundraisers for events, so we only did, I think, 3 last year. And
3 last year, and I'm booked for 54 this year, so that's a big jump. I think with COVID last year, people were just scared of having the big group meetings and everything, so the gatherings afterwards, so I think they're getting back to normal.
Are there any questions we can answer? I have a question. The general fund contribution increase of $11,980. What is the total general fund contribution? The general fund contribution is about $350,000. Now, that's the upper limit. We'll hope to see where we finish. And doing the budgeting this year was somewhat challenging because last year we weren't sure if it was an anomaly. So far on this year, we're running about $100,000 ahead on revenue, and we'll have to see how we go on expenses. So the current amount that we have for this current fiscal year, which is shown as $337,000, is less than that. I know when we looked at through July or January, which isn't full year, our revenue and expenses are about the same. But then February, we were pretty much closed for course play due to snow.
So what you're saying is if we have more revenue, less money for the general fund.
Correct. And then Sarah maybe can explain what we do when we finish either ahead or below any given year to try to balance that out. But
yeah, good afternoon, Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer. Andrew's correct. Whenever we finish the year, we evaluate where the fund stands for their cash reserves. And if they have sufficient cash reserves, then the general fund does not contribute as much money if they have a surplus in the fund. And so that's a direct savings to the general fund. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, last year, even though it was a difficult year, 2020, we did actually not end the year with a large deficit. I think we ended with a $10,000 surplus.
yeah, that seems about right. I know Ryan ran the numbers for the 6 weeks that we were closed compared to the previous year, which was one of our busiest times. So that was about $120,000 in potential lost revenue. So even with that taken out of it, we hit that mark.
Right. They keep pretty good control at the golf course on, monitoring those revenues and expenditures monthly, and making adjustments where possible if they're not meeting their revenues.
Commissioners, questions? Hearing none, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, fiscal year budget, transit department. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Please introduce yourselves and the matter.
Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works.
Kevin Cerrone, Director of Washington County Transit. Before we start today with the review of the budget, I would just like to take an opportunity to take a minute just to to give you all a synopsis of what we've been doing the past year in transit with regards to COVID and the impacts that maybe it's had on the transit system and the public. Right off the bat, I would say we have fared extremely well. A year ago, we took a hit. Ridership dropped 70% almost instantly. At that time, we did cut back service somewhat, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We discontinued operating on Saturdays. Staff went to an every other day work period from like April, May, June. The weekend after July 4th, staff came back full, and our transit services went back to full schedule also. Proud to say two things today. One, we are running at about 70% ridership of where we were pre-COVID. We expect it to hover there until some more things open, businesses get back to normal. We've kind of plateaued out at the 70% mark. COVID-wise, virus-wise, not a single employee has had a positive COVID test. With our ridership, we have not had any reports of our fixed route ridership having any positive tests. Now, of course, we don't know that for sure, but nothing's really came back to us. We've taken precautions from day one, PPE for drivers, whether it's disinfectant wipes, gloves, masks, shields. Of course, riders still have to wear masks as part of the state mandate on public transit. So I just wanted to let you know that we think we fared pretty well, especially when you look at some other public transit systems around the nation. Washington, D.C. is an example. I know it's a different animal, but they're still hovering around the very low, below 50% in their ridership recovery from pre-COVID. So, just to let you know that we're doing the best we can. We think we're doing okay. Haven't really heard anything from citizens as far as complaints of service. So we'll continue marching on, which of course brings us to our budget request for fiscal year 22. A couple of weeks ago, I came in with the grant application for the federal and state grant dollars we received for we're requesting for FY22. And I'll preface this by saying at that point, I did mention the fact that the state of Maryland, through MDOT, was reducing their operating match to the federal dollars by 20%. And on the capital side, it used to be an 80% federal, 10% state, 10% local match. It is now coming back to us as 80% fed, 20% local. So the cost sharing has changed somewhat at the state level. The federal level has remained constant. We're still receiving the same dollars in operating that we received over the past few years, and it is evident that the capital monies on the federal side will also remain available to us. So with that said, in our budget, and please feel free to interrupt and ask any questions. I wasn't going to go through every line, but just to touch on revenues. Our revenue sources are, of course, our fares. We have the federal match, the federal grants, we have the state match, we have the local match. There are some miscellaneous things in there. We still operate the jobs program through the Washington County Department of Social Services and receive $109,000 a year. If you look at the numbers there, it is a $30,000 reduction from last year and the previous year, simply because DSS does not have those funds available to pass on to us for the program. We're still confident we can operate it at the $109,000 level. When you get into the expense side of it, Andrew and I have been back and forth, and we kind of joke about this a little bit. Almost 80% of the transit budget is something where we really don't have much control over without affecting service, meaning payroll, benefits, fuel, tires. All of those things are pretty much standard, have remained consistent throughout the years, and we really don't see any adjustments occurring downward in savings of monies unless we physically change service in some fashion. Of course, if we decide to add any type of service, those numbers incrementally are expected to go up. So without going into specifics, I guess maybe I'll throw it to you guys. Is there any questions specifically about grant funds, revenue in general, particular expenses? I'll be more than happy to try to elaborate on those things for you.
I guess I'll just interject and add, in addition to the ridership being affected by COVID, we've seen the same effects on the capital side with some of our bus orders. There's been extensive delays in that process because these things are custom built and ordered, and they receive parts from a lot of different manufacturers that have been affected by the supply chain. So in some cases, buses that we've ordered now 2 years ago, we still have not received, and so then that cost shifts on the maintenance side for us to keep those buses in service since we haven't received the plate replacement yet. So that's been another way that we've been affected, and we are looking at turning over our fleet. We have a number of vehicles that we were able to purchase and have on order, but we haven't received yet.
Question. With the addition of some employers on Weasel Boulevard and Creighton Boulevard, are there bus routes already existing to take passengers there?
Creighton, we pass by both on Morgan's Avenue and we go to Morgansville then and then come back Showalter Road, so we're actually able to hit both ends of
There are
Creighton
stops
Boulevard.
included there for that?
Yes. And then Vazel Boulevard, we don't quite go down as far as the location of the new Amazon distribution center. We haven't heard from them yet, so there is a possibility we could extend if there was a request to do so.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any other comments, questions? Hearing none, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, fiscal year 2022 solid waste budget presentation. Dave Mason, please come forward. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Mason, please introduce yourself and the subject.
Good morning, Dave Mason, Deputy Director in charge of solid waste. Presenting to you today is the budget for Department of Solid Waste. So as far as the revenues go, we're showing modest increases. Permit fees staying pretty steady with a almost 4% increase in the tipping fees across the scales. A slight decrease in the general fund appropriation, given overall increase. As far as departments for expenditures, majority of the expenses are due to the COLA and step increase, with a slight increase for new lease agreements, leachate treatment, and some maintenance issues. Are there any questions at this time?
What's the percent increase?
Overall?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2.71% overall.
Got a question for you. We still have a contract with the school board or the city of Hagerstown hauling solid waste to our facility?
The school board had their contract renewed, or put out their contract, I believe, a year ago, and it's Republic Services, which we are now getting that trash.
That's coming to our landfill now?
Yes, but the city of Hagerstown is still Waste Management. They're still going to Pennsylvania.
Excuse me?
They're still going to Pennsylvania with Waste Management.
Okay.
Yes.
What's the length of that contract for the city for that?
I mean, I think the original contract was like 5 or 6 years. So I think they're in year 2 or 3 of this current contract.
Okay. Is that I'm sorry to ask these questions. Is that an automatic renewal by the city, or do we have the opportunity to make a presentation, or does that go back out for an option for us?
I'm not 100% sure on the way it's set up, but I think it's like a specific term with the option for renewal for a couple years. So it might be like 3 years regular and then a couple renewal years afterwards, but I haven't seen the contract specifically to know exact setup of it.
Thank you.
Dave, what would you estimate that value to be from either, or both, if you can estimate it, from the Board of Ed or the City of Hagerstown? What would you estimate that?
I mean, the City of Hagerstown would probably be a minimum of $400,000 a year revenue.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and look at the tonnage from the
Yeah, I
school
think at one
board.
time I heard it was, pardon me, as high as $600-some thousand.
Depending on the rate, and I think their tonnage has dropped over the last couple of years, because it used to be about 13,000 tons a year. Now I think they're estimating about 10. So if, like Republic got it, they have the second tier reduced rate at $40 a ton.
Okay.
So that would be about, $400,000 a year. School board, I think it was in that neighborhood of 100,000 or so a year.
Please continue. Anything else?
No, that's all I have. I mean,
Commissioners, any other questions for now? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir.
Next up, general year 2022 general fund budget. Sarah, Kim?
Thanks, Dave.
Please introduce yourselves and
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer, here with Kim Edlin, Director of Budget and Finance in the audience. General fund budget, this is the third draft that I have attached to this ARF. It does not materially differ too much from the previous presentation that I made to you. So instead of going department by department, today I wanted to focus on just the changes from when you last saw it. One major change includes the disparity grant amount, reduction of 7.8 million down to 6.7 million. You can see on the attachment on page 4-5 in the description that the disparity grant is in this budget at the $6.7 million amount. The reason we decided to reduce it to 6.7 million is because we are assured that we will receive the 6.7 million. With the passing of the supplemental bill, we could potentially receive 8.4 million, but that has not passed yet, and if it does, we will.
when's our budget passed down there? Is it April something? When session? It's right when session ends.
Yeah.
Session ends on the 12th or 13th.
Yeah, okay, that's just general knowledge.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Has the governor submitted a supplemental budget to cover that amount yet, or?
I don't think so.
Well, we've also written a letter to Secretary Brinkley, request full funding on that.
Absolutely, yes, we have. So we're trying to secure that funding, but I don't have it included in the budget. If we do get word that it'll be provided, we will definitely make those adjustments and appropriate those funds accordingly. The only other change to the general fund budget from last time was an increase to the election board for additional expenditures related to a second and third early voting site. This is also related to legislation that's currently being proposed or reviewed. It may not pass, but what we're hearing is that it's likely to pass, and so that's why it's included in the budget. Of course, if it doesn't pass, we'll remove that from their budget as well, and that can be found on 4-23. I would like to take a second to ask you to turn to the page after 4-25. It's also in front of you in a large format. It's the 5-year plan. This is the it's 4-25 is the last page of the general fund expenditures, and it's the next page. It's unfortunately not numbered, but it's also, Commissioners, in a large format at your desks. I printed one for you earlier today. Just wanted to bring this to your attention. So as you can see, under fiscal year 22, using the updated disparity amount number, if your eyes can fall to the bottom of the page, you see $2,692,215. That is the amount that we have available in 22 for a one-time allocation for either a capital or a one-time expenditure. I'd like you to take your eyes down to the bottom row. It's entitled excess revenue or expenditures. As you can see, those amounts are zero for the first 3 years of this plan. So while we may have 2.7 million in one-time funding available for 22, as you go to 25 and 26, you can see that that's not the case. And so right now, in the 5-year plan, we do have a deficit in those years. Now that is 5 years out. There's a lot of things that can change in 5 years. We have several developments underway right now that we expect to have some additional income tax for, which would help to alleviate those amounts. But I do just want to bring that to your attention. We don't have a meeting next week, so the next agenda available for an additional general fund discussion would be April 13th. Some of the things that I think we still need to discuss is how to appropriate the one-time funding that is available. Currently around 2.7 million. I understand it can change if the disparity grant is increased. That's another thing. If you look at this plan in 23 through 26, I do have the increased amount for the disparity grant already included in this plan because it's a sure thing for 23 and beyond. It's just not provided in the budget for 22 yet. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But I would like to, if the commissioners are not ready to decide today, some conversation and discussion related to the one-time funding, whether it be an appropriation to capital, pension, outside agency capital needs, including the Board of Ed, or additional COF funding. I think we're going to hear more about that maybe in the coming weeks as well. And there are other outside agency one-time requests to be considered as well. So just hopefully on April 13th, we can discuss that further and determine how to appropriate those funds. I can't present a final budget for a public hearing without having the answers to some of those questions.
I think you provided the commissioners with some possibilities.
I'd have,
for those
yes,
funds. I think
for
you
consideration.
have those.
Yeah, resend that. That was in an email, correct?
Absolutely, yeah, I can
Resend that.
resend it. Sure.
Did one of your proposals put some in their pension? Wasn't that for?
Yes, one of the options was to add additional funding to the pension. Another option was Board of Ed capital. Another option was outside agency one-time requests, COF funding.
We already did COF funding, didn't we?
Well, we did. We don't know the amount though, and so I think I think it was up to 100,000.
Up to 100,000.
And so whatever is appropriated from that would come off of this amount. I know that through talking with some of the outside agencies, the Free Library came in and they discussed an amount needed for IT infrastructure. The museum has a need for some ground repair and correction from some condensation related to their HVAC system. Soil Conservation's interested in a copier scanner for their large documents, and I know the Humane Society had a presentation and they mentioned a new field service truck in that. So I mean, those are some of the other needs that are out there.
Sarah, the museum's HVAC system is relatively new. Is it by any chance the issue they're having under warranty? Or?
I don't think so, and they would be better to answer, but it sounded to me when they were talking to me that it was an issue with the ground outside, so it's not actually, I don't think it's an issue with the system, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the taxpayer, they have a need for less taxes also. I know everybody has needs, but our taxpayers, our working people need some help too.
Yeah, one of the things I brought up earlier, and I haven't talked to the individual commissioners yet, but I'd like to see if we can qualify some special economic incentive for those two communities. I haven't really spoke to you guys about it, but if we could have any of that money targeted Hancock and Cascade for incentives to create job opportunities to keep those schools filled up there, I'd like to consider that. But pardon me, I haven't really discussed it too much with any of you, so I'm not asking for a decision today. But if
I'd like that to be an agenda item.
Yeah, I think because if we can, like we're saying, new schools close, it affects all of our communities, not just those two.
With the additional funding being suggested, or being proposed to the Board of Ed over and above maintenance of effort. That's not something we're required to do. I understand there's a benefit for the Board of Ed if we do approve that. I suppose that's money that could be used for other projects as well. And you gave us a laundry list of needs in the county, areas in the county where we could put that funding to. Could you maybe add that dollar amount to there as well, so we understand that dollar value to the county and how else it could be used for us?
Portmore County project, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So I guess what I'm saying, the, what I don't know if this is the correct term for it, but your dollar amount is,
The additional.
the additional hold harmless maintenance of effort.
Oh,
is
the
what
1
I'm referring
million
to.
for the,
Okay.
okay.
The hold harmless maintenance of effort. That's additional money that we are not required in any way
Not
to
required
provide
by law to
because
provide.
the Board of Ed student population has declined.
That's correct.
I think it's interesting in the same budget cycle, we're talking about the Board of Ed is asking us not to impact their funding because of a decrease in enrollment. We're looking at impacting our communities because of a decrease in enrollment. And just wondering if we don't have to use that money to provide to the Board of Ed. It's still a rather large budget and our largest allocation of monies Washington County government has ever provided to the Board of Ed. You gave us a laundry list of needs that we have. I think a top priority for me is our pension funding for our county, I think is rather low. So we could certainly utilize that money as well. If we did utilize it, where might it go?
You could, yes. It's not required by law to be provided. And that additional million, and we have talked before, I think pension is high on the priority list as well. Any infusion of contribution that we can make now starts to accrue investment earnings right now. And so the faster we can get it into the fund, the better, and the more impactful it will be.
I was gonna say, I asked that question about, I think we talked about, you put so much in, what's the percentage increase of that? And I talked to Sarah about it, then she educated me on, you put it in, and then, of course, it'll compound yearly, so the initial will only go up 1% or 2%, but then it'll help move forward as we move, you may all know that, but I had to talk with Sarah after the last meeting, she brought me up to speed on that. So I think it's important if we have, some revenue that we can put into the pension fund to start that process. And we do, and I mentioned this before, but I did also talk to Sarah about, there is a plan to build that up over a number of years,
20 years, yeah.
Anything we can put in the meantime will help speed that up.
Yeah, and I think Commissioner Kiefer asked for this to be an agenda item so we could discuss it, but I'd like some more ideas of, Terry mentioned helping taxpayer, Wayne, and I agree, the schools, and Jeff, the schools impacted, the Cascade and Hancock. Just, could you get us for an agenda item, just some more
Are you
thought
talking about
process?
economic development initiatives to
right.
be, I can, with Susan Small, potentially, yeah.
I foresee and we're bringing this back to the schools because schools are important. I think we're saying in our communities. And if we take 2 of our most outlying communities, yank their schools out from their communities, I think the amount of social needs that will be needed in those areas will be greater than ever. That's going to cost us money.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I asked Mr. Newman if that program was countywide. Because we have those economic issues in Hancock and Cascade. You're looking at a lot of people going to need rent assistance and utilities. So, all right, does that give you direction? What?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions for Sarah?
Okay.
Sarah, continue, or is that the?
So Sarah, just to recap a little bit, you will provide us that email again with your list of suggestions of where the additional monies could go. It will include the original amount you gave us, but also that hold harmless maintenance of effort should it not go to the Board of Ed.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Sarah, I believe you're up next again for the. Go ahead, Terry.
You sent me an email. I want to know how much our county spending budget has increased over the last 3 years in dollar amounts.
3 years? Sure.
5 years.
3 to 5 years? And do you mean the general fund or you mean county-wide? General fund probably is
Both.
most relative. Okay. Okay.
Okay, Sarah, I believe you're up on the next agenda item, presentation of the 2022 capital
Yes.
budget. Please
Yes.
introduce yourself again and the matter.
Thank you. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer, here to present to you draft 3 of the 2022 through 2031 capital budget. We have already been through this budget in more detail. The changes that have been made are very slight, and they are all related to some funding assumptions that we provided corrections to. The FY22 capital budget is $56,997,000. The changes can mainly be seen in the public safety section and the transportation section for road improvement. Public safety is on page 15-19. There are slight changes, and they are all related to speed camera revenue assumptions. We had assumed speed camera revenue that was higher than what we expect to receive in the general fund. The net amount of speed camera revenue we expect to receive is $500,000. In the capital plan initially, we had some years with $600,000 and some years with $700,000. So we just had to make some adjustments for that. It was relatively simple to make those adjustments because those funds go directly to the Police, Fire, and Emergency Services Training Facility or the new Police Patrol Relocation Center. So we made that adjustment. The other changes are on road improvements, which is on 17-23, and these changes were made as a result of just identifying some variations in the highway funding that was being provided. There were a couple years where one year was $300,000 being provided, the next year was $900,000, and we made it a flat $500,000 across the board. So that is just for consistency purposes for budget. And there are no material impacts otherwise. And do you have any questions on the capital plan? The capital plan does include currently $12 million in bonds, just for your awareness.
Is there a list of those top projects that equal 12 million on here?
For the bonds?
Yeah.
Bond projects, a lot of the projects that we use bonds on are road infrastructure projects and school projects. Some of the projects in the capital plan cannot use bonds. So we have needs like vehicles, we have needs with our parks, and we have other match requirements with like airport and transit funds. And so some of these projects, they can't use bond money because you have to meet certain requirements. But I don't have that in front of me, but I can certainly email that to you, the projects that are being funded with bonds.
Yes, I like
Absolutely.
I like to see that. Thank you.
And our total dollar bond debt, is it increasing or decreasing?
It is increasing.
Year after year?
Yes, we issue about 12 million annually in bonds, and we pay off about 10 million annually. So.
And sorry, Terry, you said it. Every 5 years, do we not go in front of the delegation for approval for bond debt for debt?
For increased bond authorization.
Explain what that is.
That is just authorization required that we have to issue bonds. Generally, we wait 5 years or so, and we ask for a large amount, like $50 to $70 million in bond authorization. We have to have that authorization available before we issue bonds, and we do track that authorization and what level we are at annually through the bond sale process.
Is that another, would you say, a check and balance on our commissioner form of government that we have?
Absolutely.
If we were like a charter, we wouldn't need that approval, would we? A charter government?
I'm not sure.
But every 5 years, we go in front of the delegation for that approval.
Yes. Yes.
And then
I think that's correct. I don't think we would need that if we were
For charter. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea what the average interest rate we're paying on our debt?
If I were to guess, I would say on average probably 3%. The last couple years we've come well below that, just based on the economy. If we're in a booming economy, generally the interest rate is higher, but on average probably 3%.
No, I assume we're thinking we're going to get a low interest rate.
Last year it was really low. I think 1.3% last year. It was super low, and we had several refundings with very low interest rates as well. So that's good for issuing debt.
So in a good economy, interest rates are higher.
They are,
In
yes.
a terrible economy, the rates are
Generally lower, yes. Yep.
Sarah, is there anything else?
Nothing from me, if you
Commissioners,
guys.
any other questions?
Sarah, I'm not sure if Commissioner Baker asked for this or not. Are you going to prepare a graph for us of our outstanding bond debt year by year over the last couple of years? Is that something you can do for us?
Absolutely,
Also?
I can do that, yep, no
Thank
problem. Outstanding debt?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And, do you want that by general fund or all funds, or both?
However you can present it to us,
Okay.
both if
The 12
possible.
million that we talk about generally in the capital plan is related to general fund because we also issue other self-supporting bonds for water and sewer and solid waste. But I can probably
Maybe you
easily
can
provide it
incorporate that
both
both
ways.
into the same graph.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Commissioners, anything else for Sarah?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That seems to be everything on our agenda. Have I missed something? If not, I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session. Motion to
I
go-
move to go into closed session.
Thank you. Is there a second? First and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, closed session we go.